the Ineverglow show since we only talk about Christian music about half the time. Didn't want to be misleading, to people who tune in wanting Christian music all the time. Joining me today is AJ Simmons. How are you doing, AJ?
We'll live in the dream, my man.
AJ just had a new book come out, Jesus and Joe Strummer. Is that right?
Yes, that is in fact the name.
Yeah. I
Is
meant
that
to
some
grab.
beachfront reading for you right now?
Yeah, I meant to grab. I have my book in my suitcase. I meant to grab it so I could show
Oh,
it.
the
Also
hilarious thing is my
joining. Oh,
my
go ahead.
physical copies haven't shown up yet. That's the
Really?
hilarious thing. Like, yeah, I'm the author of it, and my physical copies aren't here yet.
That's wild. Also joining me is a guy who I've known for a long time and read his blog very often over the years, David Martin. How are you doing, David?
Good. First time
Thanks so
on video on YouTube, so bear with me.
Thanks so much for joining us. I know it can be a little daunting at first, but no worries. Kyle Lynn will be joining us here in a little bit. Had a little time mix up, but he will join us and catch up when he's available. AJ, do you want to start with your honorable mentions?
Yeah. I mean, I've only got, I think, one. I'm again trying to keep this short because I can in fact ramble.
I should also probably say what this episode's about too.
That might be good. Why don't we start with that? Why don't we start there?
We are doing our list of our favorite albums of the year 2013 tonight. So, sorry about that, AJ. Go ahead.
Oh, you're fine. No, I think the only kind of honorable mention, there's two, is they just barely missed the cut, and they have such an awesome name. I really wanted to include them, but it's Someone Still Loves You, Boris Stieltsen, and their album Fly by Wire, simply because, I mean, they're like quirky indie pop type music, but that is just a great name of a band.
Love it.
And then, yeah, either of you heard of them?
No,
I don't think so.
I thought that was going to be the album name. When you said it was the band name, I was like, no
Yes,
way.
yeah. This is the one I joked about, that they're so obscure, Kylan's probably open for them. And that the other one was Childish Gambino, because the internet. I think we might get to discuss that when Kylan comes on.
Probably.
But so I'll leave that discussion for there. And then actually, Skinny Lister's Forge and Flagon. They're this weird band from like northern England that does, like, they call it shanty punk. It is like they use traditional Northumbrian like instruments and modern instruments to make kind of like chaotic shanty songs. So yeah, those are probably the three, because I used to try to highlight kind of offbeat things that I would say.
Wow, you only did three this time. I went over my five this time. I've got
Trying,
seven.
man. I know.
My goodness.
I take up more than my fair share of time. So,
well, my honorable mentions, like, this year was so stacked, it feels wrong to have these in honorable mentions. But the Elimination Ritual by the Appleseed Cast. I know Kylan probably likes that one. You do too, right, AJ?
yeah. Any Appleseed Cast is at least good.
Yeah.
Good vibe, mood music in the background.
Yeah. The Bones of What You Believe by Churches. Hurts very much to not have that in the top 10. But
You'll hear from that one again.
I say, yeah, we'll talk.
I'm familiar enough with David's work to know that there will be more discussion about that one. Yeah, that it hurts to not have these in the top 10. It really does. And the National, the Trouble Will Find Me by the National.
I'll have things to say on that one.
I'm sure Colin will have things to say about that one too. I Am a CEO by Starflyer 59. Owl by Owl, which I think I turned David on to a long time ago.
That was you for sure. That's in my top 10.
Yeah. Awesome. Inland by Jars of Clay.
Another one you'll hear from again.
Awesome. And All Sons and Daughters live album. they're like a, I don't know if y'all are familiar with them. They're kind of like a worship band with a little bit of like kind of indie rock, folky kind of influence, almost even gets a little bit bluegrassy at times. But a lot of their best songs are on that live album, and I listen to that more than their regular releases. David, do you want to give us your honorable mentions?
Yeah, I'll quickly list the albums that hurt the most to leave out, and then I have one EP that I wanted to actually talk about.
All right.
So the albums, these are all ones that, like, everything on my top 10 is an A for sure, and these are the ones that are also A's, but I had to leave them out. So Love by Cloud Cult, Migrant by The Deer Hunter, Days Are Gone by Haim, The Civil War self-titled, Play With Fire by The Reign of Kindo, and World Woman by Lucius. So that gets me down to like 16 records that I gave an A for 2013. That's rare.
Do you want to give people kind of a rundown of your grading style and things like that? That's one of the things that I most appreciate about reading your work is you have things broke down, and you do album grades, you do song grades, you do how much you would pay for each song, things that make list maniacs like me very happy. If you want to just give a little introduction.
Yeah. Well, because when I started doing this, I was writing for a site where you'd rate everything you reviewed, and it would be like 1 to 5 stars. And so I was like, oh, that's like an A to an F. So I kind of adopted that when I started my own blog. And then I would just like embellish it with A+ or A- or whatever it was. And to me, an A is like most of the songs are ones that, like, if I rated them in iTunes, I'd rate them 5 stars. Like, it more or less averages out to like 5 stars or 4.5 at the very least. But it's not an exact science. It's just like the ones that I feel the most strongly like, this is a classic that I'm going to want to come back to years later. And like a B+ is like something I'm still really excited about. It's not quite there, and then it kind of goes down the scale from there. So it's mostly based on feeling. I don't have like an equation for it. I'm not a spreadsheet guy.
Right. So I don't forget later, will you tell people the name of your blog site?
Yeah, it is Merlau 20 or Mer. I actually forget how to pronounce it sometimes. I think it's Murloch is the proper pronunciation. It's spelled Murloughh and then number 23 at WordPress.com. And the only reason it's called that is it's named after the Iona song Murloch Bay, which is one of my favorite songs. It's like a Celtic Christian group I loved back in the 90s and 2000s. So that's where I got the name from. And I've just been too lazy to change it over the years.
I think I briefly mentioned this before we really got going in the episode, but David and I first, I think, started interacting on the CM Central forums, which some of you longtime Christian music listeners may be familiar with. I was actually talking to a guy named Mike, who I'm not sure what his last name is. We're friends on Twitter, but he was, I guess, one of the main people who ran the forums back then. And I was like, do you remember David Martin, Merlot 23 or whatever it is? I was like, I'm going to have him on the show this week. He's like, oh yeah, I remember him. I haven't thought much about or haven't, interacted with him since the CM Central days. So I thought he was like, yeah, he was a foundation or a core member or something like that.
Yeah.
But at that time, that was probably the early to mid 2000s. I was just starting to really branch out. Like, I'm trying to think of some of the bands I probably discovered from discussions there that I'm sure you were part of. I think Deus Vale was one of them.
Sounds right.
Possibly Mute Math. I think I first listened to May because of a discussion in the CM Central forums.
Same here. Yeah, that would have been 2005. Just, I think, the last year that I participated.
Yeah. So yeah, and then we migrated over to a place called the Forum with a PH Forum. And I think we were that probably ran 6 or 7 years.
I think it shut down in the late 2010s. It was It wasn't that long ago. And then I migrated all my music journals to my blog because I used to keep track of them there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and then from there we just kept in touch on Facebook and things. I've tried to get him to participate in Twitter. Now we got CCM Twitter going on where everybody talks
I've
a lot
never
about
been a
CC.
Twitter guy. I can't limit
I know.
myself to however many characters it is.
I know. I, I just audience know that I've tried. Okay, he's not here for it. But
Sorry,
thanks.
audience.
Thanks so much for coming on, David.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
Well, I guess we will move into our top tens. Expound as much as you'd like on each one.
Oh, I forgot
Real
my
quick,
honorable
just say,
mention.
David, did you get to the EP that you were going to talk about?
No, I was just
oh
going
yeah,
to
go ahead.
say, yeah. So the EP that I loved from this year, that if it was, longer, it would totally be in my top albums. Is it's called Trilingual by the band Trails and Ways, and they're this band from the Bay Area. I think they met at Berkeley, and they all studied abroad in like Spain and Brazil, and so they have like these songs that have like they're kind of 80s influenced, but they're in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. There's even a little German in there on one song. Uh, Wikipedia describes their style as bossa nova dream pop, which I think is kind of unusual. I thought to me it was more like one of those super groups where like everybody sings lead. There's two guys, two girls, or there were at the time anyway. And their music is very dreamy, but it's also very throwback, like kind of 80s, 90s pop. Every song on is just gorgeous. And I happened to stumble across them when they were opening they weren't even opening, they just were like on the same bill as Paper Route when I went to this random club in LA to see Paper Route for the first time. And they were just mad on the bill in the earlier slot, and I just fell in love with them.
Interesting. I know AJ and I are both Paper Route fans. So, are you
Yeah.
familiar with? Are you familiar with them, AJ?
No, I'm not at all. I was trying to look them up actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think they were touring with Paper Route. They just happened to both be playing that same club that night.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. No,
Yeah.
I have to check them out. Sounds weird. Sounds up my
It's
alley.
just one of those like opening acts you've never heard of that just blows you away. And I love it when I have that experience, because usually it's just like, okay, just wait for this opening act to be done so the band they care about can come on.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Well, I guess we'll move into our top tens. You can speak however long you'd like about each one. And hopefully we won't be completely finished by the time Kylan gets here. I guess I'll go first. My number 10 is Miles by Canopy Climbers. Speaking of Paper Route, I think I found them because on Noise Trade, I believe it's defunct now, but I found them on Noise Trade. They listed their influences as Paper Route, All the Day Holiday. I was like, okay, this is definitely going to be up my alley, and really liked both of their full-length releases. It's that same kind of vibe as Paper Route, the synth pop, some electronic stuff going on. I believe they are now defunct, and the singer is in a band that does real well now with streams on Spotify. I think I talked about them actually in the 2011 episode. But yeah, are you guys familiar with Canopy Climbers at all?
Just
yes,
from you.
Turned me on to them specifically. I think right at the beginning of 2020 when you did your best of the 2010s list, and I checked it out. So for me, that's a happy memory from like the first couple months of 2020 before everything went to crap.
I'm kind of tired of living through historical events at this point.
Can we get some precedented events, please? Please.
But anyways, where was I? So yeah, AJ, what is your number 10?
My number 10 is I would bet very large amounts of money that nobody has heard of this on here. Josh Catalano and the Dirty Thoughts, Give Away the Night. So
Did not know that.
it is very downstate Illinois. They're from Springfield, Illinois. And he's from Wayward Motel. Maybe you know them. They're a bit more, I think, popular, but it's, alternative country type stuff. It is it is 8 tracks. It just cuts it into an album for me. But yeah, it's really good. Like, it's kind of alt country. He's a super nice guy as well. He's done like charity events for some student organizations at my university and stuff like that. A super awesome guy. But yes, Josh Catlin on the Dirty Thoughts, Give Away the Night, particularly the songs Night and Day, When We Were Young, and Light. So yeah, worth checking out. Like I said, I think that this might be the most obscure thing I've listened, even more so than Someone Still Loves You, Boris Yeltsin.
So when you have an album that's got like 8 or 9 tracks, how do you go about comparing that to an album with 12, 16 tracks?
It's tough, but my system is like, I break albums out and count the number of songs that I love on them. And like that kind of carries some weight on here. And so if they've got more tracks on there, then they should have more songs that I love. But if they don't, that says something, right? Like, you needed 16 tracks to get to 3. This album needed 8 to get to 3. So maybe there's a little bit of math there in my system. I think my system is probably a little bit closer to Kylan's, just like, I don't know, I vibe with the album a bit more than the very systematic and thought out. I've joked before, I deal with data for my job a lot, a ton of data. And so like, this is just fun for me. I don't want to make it systematic and like, I could get this published in peer review. I don't want that. I just want to be able to be like, I like this album more than this one, and these are the tracks I dig on it. So that's my Chaos Goblin system.
That's fair. David, do you have any insight on kind of how you would compare the two?
Man, I used to get into arguments with people about this. I'd be disappointed. Like, a new album would come out and it'd have like 8 or 9 tracks. I'd be like, boo, like, why couldn't you have at least 10? Like, 10 was my threshold. And then I started listening to more music from like the 70s and 80s. And I'm like, all right, I got to cut some of these modern artists some slack, because like, I feel like 8 or 9, sometimes even less than that, used to be the norm. So I'm a little more flexible on it nowadays, but especially if I've been waiting for a long time for something new from somebody, and then they only come out with 7 or 8 tracks, and they're not like, it's not like a long like progressive rock where tracks are like, 8, 9, 10 minutes long type of thing. It's like the whole album's like 20 minutes or something. I'm like, I don't know if this really feels like an album, and I'll probably downgrade it because of that, unless all the songs are just amazing.
Right.
But like, if you're going to be concise, then like all the songs better use. If you're going to be longer, you have some room to fiddle around and experiment with maybe stuff that I don't like. But there does come a tipping point where it gets tedious. If it's like really long, and I feel like half the songs on your double album are worth sticking around for, I'll probably downgrade you for that too.
Yeah.
Like the conversation we had about like M83, and I think I kind of stuck in a little bit of the Clash conversation of like, all right, M83, you could have had a really great one album or the Clash with Sandinista. If it was only a 2 album one, it'd probably be even better than the 3 one. And I love the Clash a lot. So yeah, I think at times there's no reason.
Yeah.
If you're gonna release 3 albums, they better be 3 fantastic albums. Otherwise, bring the adult into the room, bring the person that doesn't care, and it's just like, these are your best 12. We will cut.
Yeah. Put the rest out on like a B-side.
Exactly. That's the cool thing, right? Like, I mean, Block Party did this on A Weekend in a City, where they had like over 24 tracks, if not like closer to 30. And they were like, this is the album. And then this is the neat Japanese B-side. This is the neat Target only. And then it becomes like this adventure to track them all down for fans. And then you're not like as disappointed, because you're like, I don't know, I sought this out.
Yeah.
Well, the flip side of that is, if I hear a really amazing song that they cut from the album, I'll be a little mad.
Yes.
Or that's all really subjective. Like, why didn't you guys like all the same songs you made that I liked?
How dare
it bugged me so bad that Anberlin left The Haunting off of Cities for so long.
I
get
think
that.
they agree with you on that now.
Okay, good. That's like, it's such a great song. Um, I mean, I get that it was stylistically similar to, some of the others on there, and they maybe didn't want another kind of slow burner, but it's such a great song. Anyways, um, I've just been kind of toying with this thought as I'm rearranging my um favorite albums of all time list for the 10,000th time. That like there are albums with like 15 songs on them. If you take the best 10, it's one of my favorite albums of all time. But taking it as the 15 track album that it is, and it's got 5 duds and 10 great songs, you kind of got to move it down the list. It's like,
Yeah.
this should be one of my favorite albums of all time, but you put these other ones on here, which, according to, like David said, like my subjective opinion, are much better than what you chose.
See, with your guys' like systematic way of thinking this through, that we don't probably run into the problem that I do. That tomorrow I will disagree with my list. I will be like, why didn't I go ahead and include Someone Still Loves You, Boris Yeltsin? Why didn't I include Childish Gambino? Why did I include this?
No, I still do, which is why it would probably save me from sanity if I just did it your way. But
yeah,
the reason I do my list on Rate Your Music is because you can just click reorder lists and move your things around. So that makes it real easy for me to just switch everything around as I want. All right, sorry to derail that a little bit, but that's just something that's been on my mind a little bit. David, what is your number 10 album of 2013?
Yes, my number 10 is Modern Vampires of the City by Vampire Weekend. They're one of those bands that they're almost like the indie hipster band. I feel like, I mean, everybody kind of knows who they are, but it's kind of like when you say, "Oh, I like Vampire Weekend," people kind of peg you as like one of those hipsters, But they're just one of those bands that has slowly kind of like, oh, they're actually becoming one of my favorite bands. With every album that they put out, I realize a little bit more. And that's my second favorite of theirs. Contrast is my favorite from 2010. This one's more experimental, lots of pitch shifted, vocal weirdness, lots of cluttered samples. The pacing's all over the place. I did not actually like this album the first couple times I listened to it. It was one of those where I thought, I'll just pull a few songs off and the rest are kind of duds. But the more I got into it, the more I started to get into some of the weird songs. I definitely think it's their artsiest album. There's a lot of interesting religious overtones on certain songs, like Unbeliever. Yahé, which is one of my favorites. There's so many layers of meaning on that album. So many puns, not puns that are funny, but puns that are just like wordplay. So yeah, it's a hard album to describe, but I really came to love it, over the years since it came out.
I think you cut out there for a minute. Did he cut out for you, AJ?
Yeah, okay. A little bit where you
the rest of you guys cut out for me.
Okay. If you want to, you can repeat some of it, and Colin can.
Yes, it was great work for Kylan.
Yeah.
Dude, man, I was afraid this would happen.
Didn't read the clock right.
Yeah. So basically, in a nutshell, it's their difficult third album with a lot of pitch shifting and cluttered samples, and I didn't like it at first. It grew on me over the years. I think it's their artsiest album, maybe not their catchiest, but there definitely are some crazily upbeat, catchy songs on it. And I really like a lot of the religious overtones, even though I don't think they're a religious band in any way. Like they kind of they kind of toy with it on songs like Unbelievers and Yahé. And I love the wordplay where Yahé is kind of a reference to Yahweh. There's a lot of layers in those songs. So yeah, I realize just top to bottom, I don't love every track, but the ones I do elevate it to the point where I can kind of get through the few that are like, oh, this is still kind of weird to me.
Vampire Weekend are one of those bands that I enjoy when I'm listening to them, but I usually listen to them when I saw that they had a new album come out or a well-received album or whatever. And then I just kind of never go back to it. I don't know why. They're one of those bands because I feel like they're probably a band that rewards you by repeated listens. Is that kind of how it works for you with them, David?
It has been very true with that particular album and also their latest one that came out this year, where repeated listens turned me around on it pretty radically. I would say their other three were pretty easy to get into right away. The fourth one suffers a bit from too many tracks syndrome.
Mm.
For me, they're all pretty darn good. And I would say that Modern Vampires is my second favorite out of all their albums.
Okay. Good stuff. Do you know that one, AJ?
Yeah. Kind of what you said. Like anytime I hear them, I'm like, yeah, pretty solid stuff. And then I don't ever seek them out. Usually it's somebody like they either played on like one of the Sirius stations I listen to, or out in the store, or somebody's playing it. But yeah, anytime I hear it, it's one of those like, yeah, this is fine. I'm not angry that this is on.
Yeah. All right.
They're pretty mainstream for an indie band, I think.
Yeah, I would say that. And they get even more overt with their religious overtones in the album that came out a couple years ago. Don't they? I can't remember what it was called.
Yeah, Father of the Bride. I think you're right. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah, I think so. All right, my number 9 is an album called Black Sun by Goldfields. They're labeled as indie-tronica / indie pop. It's kind of like another one. I was just really into Paper Route at the time, I think, and they just kind of scratched that Paper Route itch. One of their songs called Treehouse came on MTV, I think, back when MTV still had a random channel that showed music videos. But yeah, I was rocking my baby daughter and it came on. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna have to check that out. And just solid all the way through, electro pop, synth pop kind of stuff. Nothing too heavy lyrically. Has a lot of like kind of tribal beats and things in it that I thought was kind of unique for that style. Very well produced, slick sounding. Yeah, just a fun listen. Nothing that will, change your world or anything, but might be a fun listen if that's the kind of thing you're into. Either of you guys familiar with them?
Nope, but I just added it to my phone.
All right.
Stylistically, that sounds like something I would like, though.
I think you would like it.
Okay.
All right, AJ, what is your number 9?
My number 9 is already one that's been mentioned, and at times, Days Are Gone.
Nice.
So, it's just solid, like almost Fleetwood Mac-esque rock. It kind of reminds me a bit of like Rilo Kiley as well, especially like the Silver Linings and that sort of stage of Rilo Kiley. They're catchy. They use harmonies. But yeah, I dig them. I think you mentioned this, David, so I'll be curious, but I really like Don't Save Me, If I Could Change Your Mind, and Falling. Probably are like the 3 I would know on there.
Oh man, I would say almost like the entire first half of that album I just love, plus My Song 5 and it's the second to last one, Let Me Go, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But my favorite's probably Forever.
Yeah.
Just because like I love the drumming and just how like rapid fire the vocals are in that song. There's just so much going on. It reminds me of 80s and 90s pop groups that I wish I had been into when they were cool.
I've been meaning to do a deeper dive on their stuff. I've heard songs here and there, but I need to listen to some actual full albums, obviously, since both of you guys are fans.
Yeah.
All right, David, what is your number 9?
My number 9 is Everything Is Debatable by Hello Goodbye.
Oh, yeah.
And they're one of those bands. I was introduced to them in the late 2000s, and they were like one of those, I call them MySpace bands. Because they're kind of a pastiche of like everything that it seems like young people that were younger than me in the 2000s really liked. And I was like, yeah, some of their stuff's kind of fun and catchy. I wasn't as much into like the synth pop stuff then as I later became, but they evolved into a really excellent band for a couple of albums there. And this one is just one of those manic, all over the place, kind of synth poppy, kind of Baroque poppy. It's like the most fun you'll ever have listening to somebody's existential crisis type of album. Like that, because that's basically what the lyrics are about. It's just like, I don't even know what really exists, and if the world around me is real, and it's the lyrics are so surreal, but the music is just like an absolute party.
Describing it that way, again, calling it manic is almost like sounds like existentialist Joy Electric a little bit there, right?
Yeah.
Just absolute pure
That's not
chaos.
entirely. Yeah, you're in the right ballpark there.
Yeah, I think Joy Electric's one of those bands that like 10 years later, man, in the MySpace era, I think Joy Electric would have hit pretty big in that
yeah.
area.
I think if you took away, I don't know if Joy Electric later evolved out. If you took away the strict, like the only instrument is that one synthesizer thing, and just let them go nuts with like whatever instrumentation like they wanted, then that might hit a little closer to what it is. But yeah,
well, that's such a great way to describe Hello Goodbye. So you broke me there for a minute. I had to move back from my mic.
If you could have got, Ronnie Martin and Jason Martin to join forces a little more often in that era, they could have had like a MySpace hit,
100%.
MySpace era hit album.
I think Brothers Martin is their most accessible project across the two of them.
Yeah, I agree. All right, my number 8, get back to my list here, is Everyone is Dark by New Canyons. Another kind of not very well known synth pop / dream pop / kind of dark rock kind of thing, almost like a little bit Depeche Mode vibes, I would say. But when they go bright, I think they go a little brighter than Depeche Mode does. But it's got kind of like that dark, dreamy and synthy vibe to it. Actually, I found them, I think, when I was researching artists to try to put on the Fluorescent CD compilation that I put out in 2019. That was how I found them. So I was pretty late to the game on it, but it's only 9 tracks, but all bangers. They put out another album in 2021 called Heavy Water that's also pretty solid. Yeah, you guys familiar with New Canyons at all?
Nope. It's on the phone now, though.
Oh yeah, I sent you the CD, didn't I?
Yes, and that was the first track on it too. Was one of the tracks from that album. It was many years after the fact, but yeah, I did go back and check that out. I think they had a new one a couple of years ago that I checked out.
Nice. Yeah, good stuff. All right. AJ, what is your number 8?
My number 8, it is a band that has ended up in a lot of my years, but never my decade countdowns, because they're always in the bottom of my years, and so they never make it. But they're a fantastic band that I've seen twice, and they put together a really good set because they release so many albums, and every album has 3 tracks that I love. Well, at some point when you release 8 to 10 albums, you put together a pretty good set list, and that is Placebo with Wild Like Love. I'm assuming you both have heard of that.
Yes. I know Placebo, yeah.
Name sounds familiar. I'm not familiar with the music.
So I'm thinking they did a cover of Running Up That Hill years ago that I think blew up pretty big. 20 Years to Go would be another one. They were on the Cruel Intentions soundtrack. It was actually where I discovered them. But they have been a British French alt band for 30 years, I want to say. I'm going to double check that right now before I get that wrong. But yeah, their first album came out in 1996. But yeah, Every Me, Every You, Running Up That Hill are kind of some of their bigger ones. But the ones I like on Loud Like Love are the title track, Loud Like Love, Too Many Friends, which is this great thing about technology and how it actually disconnects us in some ways, though we're sitting here having been connected by technology. And then a song called Exit. But yeah, they're really great. Like I said, British alternative, aggressive at times, sort of that grunge of the 90s, but way more electronics, probably similar to, I think, Garbage. Eric, you've heard them, so maybe am I kind of on the right track of that?
Yeah, I think that's
Garbage,
right.
Only
the thing that really the thing that really sticks out with them to me is their singer has just a creepy sounding voice.
Yeah, very unique. Yeah, it's in a good like a unique vocals. Yeah, and
Yeah.
like a great stage presence, and like again, they're really angsty and aggressive and like frustrated, I think.
Yeah.
And come from I think a subculture that doesn't have a lot of bands like that. Would be I think the way to describe that. Very angsty, angry art school kids. That's how I would describe them.
That sounds
But
right.
writes really good, at times bleak and dark lyrics, and then delivers them with like almost like a witch-like voice. It's and I mean that in a good way.
It's
I
different.
really like a lot of artists that have really unique voices, right? Like Ronnie Martin, Billy Corgan, kind of falling there, Tom DeLonge and so yeah, Brian Molko, I think is his last name, has like this really unique vocals, really great stage presence, and then all of their songs are like kind of this introverted, quiet, calm, and then just burst. And it is so great to see live because of that. They're one of those bands that's like, I don't know if your album's actually captured like how fun you are live. But yeah, so Placebo, Loud Like Love.
I think I was just looking at what I've listened to, or at least catalog that I've listened to by them. I've listened to 3 of their albums. And
were you repeating 2011 where you get a hate on everything I like? Okay.
Yes, all of them were so bad. I can't believe you like them. No, I'm just kidding.
Ouch.
No, unique sounding. One of those that I feel like I kind of feel like would have come across a lot better live. I feel like I could have appreciated the albums more had I experienced them in that context. I still gave them good 3-star ratings, which is good for me. That's kind of like I enjoyed it.
There you go.
Yeah,
they're one that always, like I said, ends up in like mid to bottom half. Like I think every album of theirs makes my yearly ones, and then they're just so kind of low that like for the decade one, it's really probably you gotta be a top 5.
Yeah,
unless there's some really weird year, which I think we ended up in like 2010, where I was just like, I don't know, like all 10 of the albums are in my top 50.
Well, it's kind of funny you mention that, because my top 7 are all in my top 1. My top 7 of 2013 are all in my top 100 of all time.
There you go. There you go.
Wow. At least at the moment. So, so I think as far as like the top of the list, I think 2011 is my favorite year. But as far as like, expanding through, how strong each position is, I think 2013 might actually be my favorite year in that regard. David, what is your number 8?
2011.
I'll go ahead.
I was just going to say my favorite years for music so far have been also 2011 and 2013.
Really? See,
I think 2011 beats it out slightly, but then like 2013, I think I have fonder memories of, just because it was a happier year for me in general. But like both of those years, the music was they're just stacked with great albums, like more than any other year that I've kept track of so far, at least.
I feel like I've said before, whatever was in the water between 2011 and 2015, if we could please put it back, because that 5 years was just like my favorite 5 years of music ever. And that's like even with the late 90s CCM, Christian alternative stuff there being so great, the mid 2000s, Tooth and Nail emo type stuff being so great. Somehow that 2011 through 2015 still tops those eras for me. I
think that's a good sign, because usually the hero you love best is the hero you grew up on. And right. If a hero when you were older can actually top that, and I feel like that means you're still paying attention, you're still engaging with music. You're not going to be one of those old fogies that's just like, oh, music is so much better back in my day.
I agree. And a lot of what I tweet about on Twitter and stuff that people enjoy is very nostalgia based, 2000s and 90s CCM stuff. It's like I almost sometimes feel like a hypocrite, because my favorite music actually came out after that. but no, I do still obviously
you never forget your roots.
Love those eras. Yeah. I've very much love those eras still. But anyways, what's your number 8, David?
Well, that turned out to be a perfect segue into my number 8, because my number
Okay.
8 is a band that I got into during the late 90s alternative Christian music boom. And that is Engine of a Million Plots by Five Iron Friends. And yeah, this was their comeback. They had been broken up for almost a decade. I think they announced in 2011-ish that they were reforming and making a new album. And I think it got Kickstarter funded within like 45 minutes of the announcement or something crazy like that. Like people were just so stoked for new Five Iron Frenzy. And it's actually my favorite album. Like old stuff is fun, but this one is just like, it just hits hard for some reason. It's more of their later stuff's more walk with horns than it is straight up ska. But they still have the sense of humor. They still have the cutting commentary on like hypocrisy within the Christian scene, which is something I've always appreciated about them, is they're kind of not afraid to like call out their own. The song Zen and the Art of Xenophobia is like, man, like every time I hear that song, I'm like, why does this keep becoming more relevant? Like, it's amazing. So like the whole album it's a really good balance. And another thing that I appreciate is that not everyone in the band is a Christian, so you get different perspectives on like belief and what it's like to have lost belief and trying to navigate that kind of conversations between Reese Roper, the lead singer, and one of their other members who I think became an atheist, and how they were still able to make art together, make something meaningful out of that conversation. Just something that I really appreciate. So yeah, just solid out, another solid one, just top to bottom, listening to it. They don't put out new stuff that frequently these days. I think their last new album was 2021. But I'm glad they're still making it. So,
Being that you are not on Twitter, you probably don't know that Five Iron Frenzy fans think I have some kind of like agenda against
Bias.
them.
Yeah.
Bias.
oh no, really?
Why do you hate? He's gonna delete this pic of yours. You have Kylan like delete this, or just he's gonna insert like Starflyer in there or something, and just wipe out that you said something nice about Five Iron Frenzy.
But I like.
We don't allow it. We don't allow nice things about Five Iron Frenzy.
I like Five Iron Frenzy. Their fans just think that because I am not as much of a super fan as some of them, or that I don't put them in every tournament that I do online, that I'm somehow against them, even though when they won the first CCM tournament, I had a trophy made and sent to Reese Roper.
Yeah.
Would I do that for a band that I don't at least respect? No. So,
yeah.
Anyways,
it's intense.
Like
just... it becomes a joke. Like you're not on there, and so if he posts something, I'll randomly be like, "And why is this about Five Iron Frenzy?" But then at times people have actually like jumped in and like responded, and I'm like, I didn't mean to trigger you guys. I'm sorry.
Extremely passionate fan base.
Go on about I have a love-hate relationship with extremely passionate.
It's really unfortunate that our Five Iron Frenzy isn't on right now. Kylan.
Yeah. AJ, did you find my Twitter page because of the CCM? No, you were there before that, right? But you were
it was
the
first one, and it was not because of Five Iron, I don't think.
Okay.
It was some random, I think it was one of the polls or something that you like commented it was close or whatever. I was like, what is this? I recognize these bands.
Okay.
And so I think it was with the first tournament that I at least started paying attention. I didn't really quite interact. I think it was like maybe when you did the tooth and nail one a couple months after that I was like, I am gonna dip my toe into interacting on this, because we joke about like other some cultures and stuff like that on Twitter that, oh my god, they're all the Five Iron Frenzy fans. It's like, I have this very strong opinion, and if you moderately disagree with me, I will bash your head in. And you're like, well, I don't want to interact with you. And so like that's what Twitter had been. And so I was like, I'm gonna dip my toe in. And then the bad thing is when I interact in this space and then I go to dip my toe in one of the other ones, then I like, I forgot it's not as nice.
We try to keep CCM Twitter as wholesome as possible. There's some nastiness that gets in, but for the most part.
But yes, the first tournament you did, at least is when I started tracking and like paying attention.
I wasn't sure if you came over with like the wave of Five Iron fans, I guess, after it got posted on their Facebook Okay.
It was Elon's broken algorithm that somehow threw this in there and was right. Like I got a lot of stuff that was way off on, and then that got end up in my timeline, and I was like, "Hey, you got one right. All right." And then it's
You're
like
just
99% garbage.
You're just adding to the list of reasons why I'm not on Twitter.
No, like genuinely. If it wasn't for Eric and Kylan and these folks, I largely wouldn't. Because the only other space I really sort of exist in is academic space, because I'm an academic, and I don't like that one either. No, not so much. So it's largely these guys.
Yeah, we have fun.
Yeah.
All right. David, I think we're on your number 8. Is that right?
We just did my number 8.
We just did your number 8. Okay. All right. So my number 7. Falling Up released 3 albums in 2013. Do you think they're all in my top 7?
Yes. It would not shock me in any way, shape, or form.
The statistical odds of it happening are probably fairly high.
Falling Up released Silver City in 2013, their Christmas album. That is my number 7. And you guys can all blame David for my Falling Up obsession, because he let me know at some point in his reviews that they were no longer like a new metal band and that they were making some really cool stuff. And I gave it a shot and became obsessed. So you can thank or unthank David for all the posts you see about Falling Up from me.
I was startled to learn that I was responsible for that.
Yeah, I mean, if you grade something good, if you describe it as something that I think I would like, I always check it out. Did not expect that they had morphed into what they had on Hours and Your Sparkling Death Cometh, until I saw what you had written about. I think Hours had just come out around that when I'd read your reviews, and that was when I kind of
that late in the game. I'm surprised.
Yeah. Well,
wow.
I was a fan of their early stuff. I think I bought Crashings when it first came out. I was real into new metal at that time and stuff like that, and kind of got.
We all have our flaws, Eric.
Yeah, kind of got more into like emo and metalcore and kind of away from just the hard rock thing. And they were, unbeknownst to me, progressing alongside of me. And
yeah.
So yeah, Silver City, a mostly Christmas album. My favorite Christmas album. Couple different versions of Oh Holy Night on there. Song in the Air is really good.
That's my favorite on that album.
Is it? Yeah, it's so good. The Little Robot is another good jam. If you like atmospheric kind of artsy kind of rock music, and it's the holidays, might be a good one to throw on. I will listen to it in the middle of summer. I do not care, but you may not be that way. I don't know.
I have a few Christmas albums that are like that, like Brian Fallon's Christmas album and then Ronnie Martin's Christmas album are just good background music.
If it's good music, it's good music. If it's about the birth of Christ, that doesn't mean you can only listen to it in December.
I think I'm more likely to do that when the songs are not so much the traditional carols, but they're songs that are either originals or that I'm just not as familiar with. Like Song in the Air is one I have it on my playlist of favorite Falling Up songs, because it's just an amazing rendition. It's like the Main Street Electrical Parade going off around you at the end of it.
That's.
But like something like Oh Holy Night, as much as I love it, that's my favorite Christmas carol of all time. Like that, I'd probably only put on, and I'm very strict. Like I don't put on Christmas music until like after Thanksgiving, and I cut it out by the end of the year normally. But I'll make exceptions for the less obviously Christmassy songs on Christmas albums.
Yeah, the stuff that they play on the radio every year, like I can pretty much do without that even in December. But
oh man, if I go shopping that time of year, I have to like put headphones on and be listening to my home music while I'm in the supermarket, because it's just grates on me.
Oh yeah. There's,
and I think mine technically starts in like post Labor Day, because I start listening to Nightmare Before Christmas as a part of like the build up to Halloween a little bit, and so like that's sort of like the transition album. I
There
listen
you
to a lot
go.
of like Halloween and like goth music, like post Labor Day through Halloween, and Nightmare Before Christmas falls in there, and then starting day after Halloween, I'm like in it now. It's Christmas music, but I don't listen to like the mainstream Christmas songs a ton. But yes, then there's like you said, the originals are stuff that like I can listen to year round off.
All right, AJ, what's your number 7?
My number 7 might be higher up on one of the views, and so if it is, just let me know, and we'll reserve talking for that. And that is "Churches the Bones of What You Believe." So, is that higher up for you, David?
It is, but I want to hear what you have to say about it.
Oh, we can talk about it. Yours. I usually just reserve it for the discussion of like whoever the highest has it the highest. We'll talk about it in depth then. So,
okay, that'll work.
So yeah, I'm done then.
Well, it's on there.
David, David, what's your number 7?
I've got "Ghost on Ghost" by Iron and Wine.
Okay.
And this to me is kind of the end of the kind of a middle era of Iron and Wine. They're like, Iron and Wine mostly is like kind of hushed indie folk.
Okay.
Like a lot of their songs just sound like kind of a guy whispering over acoustic guitar, and there might be some ambient effects or something weird going on, but for the most part, it's pretty low key. But from like late 2000s to early 2010s, he kind of went like widescreen and just started throwing all these layers into a sound. And some people hated it. I really loved it. So everything from like The Shepherd's Dog up through this album, like I love music that's just intricately layered. This album kind of backs off on the electronic experimentation of his previous one, but it's more jazzy. It's like jazzy indie folk. It's hard to describe. There's just so much, and the lyrics are just so dense. I don't think I understand any of his songs, to be honest with you, but they're just like dense, like Southern Gothic haunted with like vaguely religious themes, and I don't even know what's going on. He does a lot of self-backing harmonies that I think are gorgeous. This is the most recent album of his that I've like really, really gotten into. I love all of his stuff, but definitely this to me is his best one of the 2010s.
Really like his vibe. He's another one that I need to dig into more. I think I've heard one or two of his albums, but I've definitely not done an entire discography deep dive. So it sounds like I need to listen to that one.
He's another one of those indie artists that might as well be mainstream for as much as you hear him. Like he pops up in soundtracks everywhere,
right?
TV ads, things like that. Like anytime somebody does like an acoustic cover of a song that was originally very like up-tempo pop, I call it the Iron and Wine effect, because
that was full
kind
service.
of because like one of his most famous covers is Such Great Heights. But like he's done that with a lot of songs over the years, and I feel like a lot of other like indie folky kind of acoustic groups started doing that sort of thing. I'm not saying that he started it, but definitely in his wake, like it has started happening a lot more.
Yeah, I'm adding that to my list. Kylan just messaged he may not make it before the end of the episode, so
oh no.
A lot going on apparently. But that's okay. We will party on.
But he has spliced himself in.
Yeah, maybe he will.
Yeah. That's too bad that we won't get to interact with him about any of his picks, though.
Yeah, we'll have to have you back on for one that he's here for.
Well, don't twist my arm.
All right, my number 6 is "Moving Mountains" by Moving Mountains. Kind of a atmospheric rock album, but a little more chill than their previous stuff. A little more singer-songwritery, I guess, than what their previous stuff had been. Where it was more, their older stuff was more like post-rock and post-hardcore. This one's just a chiller vibe, and it's one of my favorite albums to put on when there's just not anything in particular that I want to listen to, that I just want to vibe out to. So that is my number 6. AJ, what is your number 6?
My number 6 was mentioned earlier. The National Trouble Will Find Me. Pretty much any National albums get to make it in somewhere in my top 10. But I like this album a lot. Continue their sad dad rock. As they even sell shirts saying. I really like Fireproof, Graceless, I Need My Girl. On here, that last one in particular, I think, comes to mind when I have to travel away from home, travel away from the wife. But it's just a good album, right? I mean, anything they do is kind of that moody, introspective, clever style. And he's got that those are great vocals. And so, yeah, I think this album a lot. I know it was mentioned earlier. Did you want to say anything about the album that you didn't get to say earlier?
It's my favorite National album by far. It's like if I'm in the mood to listen to the National, that's the one that I put on. I enjoy some of their other stuff, but as a whole, that's definitely the one that I like to listen to. Are you familiar with the National, David?
I've heard some of their stuff. They're one of those bands that's never like specifically grabbed me. I think I just need to hear like the right song or whatever to make me investigate deeper into them. No matter how much I go back to like previous eras of music, there's always like these certain bands and I'm like, these guys were big and I never checked them out. So next time I go back through the 2000s, 2010s, I'll probably add them to the list.
You do so good about that, though. You're very meticulous on trying to hit everything that was major, though. I really like that.
Yeah, it gets a little stressful sometimes. and then I'm done with it for a while. I'm like, okay, I'm in a different decade now. Like, I don't have room for any more recommendations that are outside. Like, I'm going through the 70s right now, so that's a whole different ball of wax.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I'm saving all these recommendations for later.
Right. Kylan did send me his list, so we can go over his list if we want to.
Yeah, let's get caught up.
All right, so his number 10 is "Didn't It Rain" by Hugh Laurie. Is that the actor?
Yes, that he texts joking that he would be the only person to have an actor's album on his list.
Okay, so that's his number 10. Number 9 is "No Blues" by Los Campesinos. I know of them, but I don't know that album.
Yeah.
Number 8 is "Pure Heroine" by Lorde.
There you go.
That's a good one. I like that album.
Yeah. Number 7 is "Run the Jewels" by Run the Jewels. Number 6 is "Whenever If Ever" by The World Is a Beautiful Place and I Am No Longer Afraid to Die. One of
holy moly.
Who are actually
they just want to like be annoying on marquees or something with that name.
they're a much better band than their band name. I got to give them that. I've seen them live.
I'm sure.
They are good.
Sure. That beats the Boris Yeltsin one in terms of like playing with even a long band name.
He just has to one up me. He's like, "Oh, you got a long band name? I got a longer one, buddy."
Yeah. I think since they've come out, everybody's like, "All right, that's too long. We're done with this competition." All right, David, what is your number 6?
My number 6 is "Current" by Isley. I don't know if you guys are familiar.
That was nearly a finalist for it. That was in my initial list.
Good.
Oh, man.
I'm glad to talk to someone else that likes that album because I feel like even amongst Isley fans, that does not seem to be one of their more popular ones. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
I don't know any other Isley fans, so sure, I'll believe you.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I don't know that many myself. I haven't been to a show in there since probably the late 2000s. But when we were talking about Chaim, one thing I wanted to mention was that I'm a sucker for sibling harmonies, and Isley has checked that box for me every time because it's 3 sisters in the front band. 2 of them rotate singing lead, and the other one occasionally will sing as well. But yeah, they just pretty much like I just swoon every time the music comes on. This album in particular feels like their most imaginative one. I feel like their first few were very like twee pop, and I mean I love Room Noise. That's one of my favorites in the 2000s. But this one I feel like is a more mature take on that, and it's more diverse, I would say. They even have their younger siblings from the band Merriment on a song. So there's like even more siblings stacked up on that one. What the title of that one is. Something Child, Wicked Child, or something like that. But yeah, there's just some beautiful, like, there's catchy pop. There's kind of like weird experiment, not like experimental sound, but experimental in terms of like the format of the song. Like something like Bluefish. It's not like a traditional verse chorus. It kind of starts off with the refrain, it backs off, it builds back up. So I feel like they really kind of like challenge themselves to think outside of the usual box on this one. And maybe that's why not as many IC fans resonated with it. But to me, it's like, I can't imagine 2013 without that album because I played it to death.
No, fair enough. It's a good album. They're one of the bands that even when I don't love their album, I like it and can just kind of throw it on. If it comes up randomly on Spotify or whatever, one of the songs, I don't mind it at all. I think that my favorite of all of theirs is Room Noises probably, but this one, like I said, it was in my initial list. And so, I mean, what's not to like about them? Like dreamy indie pop, kind of quirky kids. I was supposed to see the one that's married to Max Bemis. She was going to come out and sing on a Say Anything song when I saw Say Anything, and she got sick.
Oh,
so she ended up coming out. Yeah. So I was like kind of waiting for it. And then Max was like, yeah, so this is the song that she normally sings on, but she's sick tonight. So
that's a bummer.
Bummer.
Yeah. But yeah, I like them a lot.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Room Noises.
She's done. Yeah, Room Noises.
Yeah.
I haven't kept up as much with what Sherry's done since the last ISD album, but Stacey has a solo project called Sucre that recently finally came out with her second album, and then of course her husband is Darren King from Mute Map, so they record stuff together, or I guess he produces her stuff. And, yeah, so it's kind of fun to hear what they've come up with together too. But I'm bummed that like the band basically imploded after Currents, and there's only like 2 people left in it now.
Yeah, that's a bummer. All right, my number 5 is Midnight on Earthship by Falling Up. Surprise, surprise. It is their more chill kind of albums, good early morning or evening album just to wind down with. Almost like at times it almost sounds like some kind of worship album, like that, like Aliens or something. I don't know how to describe it. Like from like another planet, like a worship album from another planet or something. I don't know. How would you describe it, David? It's
yeah. Similarly, I got the worship album vibes. It's their most lyrically direct in a long time.
Yeah,
and some of it's more. It's not as layered as the Falling Up stuff that I tend to love the most, but it's set apart from the rest of their collection for that reason.
Yeah.
I tend to like the songs that have more sound effecty things going on that one, like Sky Circles is one of my all-time favorites by them. I think Graying Morning is one of those beautiful, like perfect early mornings, and just trying to like get in the right headspace. So there's some good stuff on there. I'm not as huge on it as you are, but I do like it.
Yeah. It's grown on me over the years. It kind of took where I was just trying not to wear out hours and Your Sparkling Death Cometh, and I started playing that one a little more to keep from that happening, and it grew on me that way. Colin's number 5 is Collapsible Lung by Reliant K. I can't help if this is just Colin trying to be contrarian or what, because I think the general consensus of that album is that it's just not good.
That's my opinion as well, and I'm glad you said that, so I don't feel as bad for dunking on it. But here's the thing, though. It starts off great. Like, the first few tracks on that album, I love. And then from there on, I'm just like, what do you guys do?
Yeah,
and I feel bad that he's not here to defend it, too.
I know.
Hopefully he's like floating around the background and you kind of hear us, because we just see him like scrambling to get to the laptop to be like, no, let me tell you why.
Well, when he sent his list, he said, if you want to crap on my list, here it is.
Yeah, I feel bad like crapping on somebody's favorite when they're not there to defend it. I'm like, I at least want to understand what you saw in this, because maybe I go back and be like, oh, you know what? I missed that song, and that's actually a good song, or whatever.
He did a
But I will
cover.
vouch for. Oh, what a cover?
He did
What?
a cover of one of the songs on it. I think for like a project that I think it's Sadie Hawkins Pod maybe that they put
Okay.
together like a cover album of it. I think
Yeah.
he covered one of the songs on it. Maybe that's added to his appreciation. Actually, playing the song. I don't know. I didn't mean to interrupt you, David. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say that I will go to bat for "Don't Blink," which is the opening track on the album, and especially "Boomerang." "Boomerang," I think, is one of their most fun. It's like one of the most fun dumb songs in their collection. Where it's just like this song is like it doesn't make any sense to me. It's just kind of silly, but dang, it's that catchy. It's probably one of my like top 10 tracks from that year.
Oh wow, interesting. I haven't listened to it in a long time.
I loved it that much, but yeah, but it's like it's nothing deep. It's
Yeah.
about like breaking up with the girl and leaving your hoodie in her car or something like that.
Yeah. All right. AJ, what's your number 5?
Talking about albums that aren't as well loved by bands, I've got Jimmy Eat World Damage. This, from what I gather on Twitter, is not a popular Jimmy Eat World album.
Doesn't seem to be.
And people are wrong. And that's fine. Everybody gets to be wrong. That if the worst thing you've ever been wrong about is this album, then that's a pretty blessed life right there. But no, this is a good album. Well, what I will say about this album too, and like actually, but like a lot of the rest of mine, is like it's a 2013 album that feels personally to me like a 2012 album because of the subject material, and so I think maybe that's why it hit for me of like I guess what the personal situations were still raw, and this kind of connected to that at that time. But in particular, like Please Say No, I Will Steal You Back, and You Were Good. Do you two have thoughts on this? Are you guys in the camp that this is terrible? I think the first time we disagreed was about like the Jars of Clay album, Eric, and so this one of those situations
we're gonna get there.
Jars of Clay. David, man, I wish Colin was on.
Well, let's not jump ahead to that. We're still talking Jimmy
okay.
World.
All right. Anyway, so Jimmy World Damage. Yeah. Thoughts on Jimmy World Damage from either of you gentlemen?
I think Damage is a good album. I don't think it's worth being crapped on to the degree that I sometimes see it is. It's not one of my favorites by them. I think if it maybe had a couple more tracks on it, it could have that could have helped it for me. But I have no real complaints about anybody really liking it. I think it's good.
Yeah, to me, it's one of those. I don't think Jimmy Eat World has any bad albums. They have a lot of albums for me that are kind of middling, where I haven't re-listened to them that much. I haven't thought about them that much. To me, it's kind of a gap, like after Futures up until I think Integrity Blues, where it's like I don't dislike any of them, but none of those are my favorites. But what amuses me about Jimmy Eat World is my brother got me into them back in the Bleed American days. He and I are both huge fans of Futures, and then after that, we just completely diverge. Like he loves Chase This Light. I'm not a big fan of it. I love Integrity Blues and Surviving. He's like, nah. It's like we just don't like. My brother will get me into bands, and then we'll just argue over like what stuff by those bands is actually good. It's so annoying. It's like, why do you get me into bands if we're just gonna fight over
siblings? That's why.
I know, right?
It's funny. Yeah, I have honestly, until seeing the way that people talk about it on Twitter, sometimes I never thought of it as being anything more than like just like a mid-tier kind of Jimmy Eat World album. But
like I'm from Arizona, man. Jimmy Eat World doesn't have a bad album after Bleed American. Like and so when I saw that on Twitter, I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
I feel like a good life. How dare you? And so yeah, it was genuinely like surprising to me. I was like, this is a new take for me. I've never heard this take before. And then to find that it's actually like pretty widespread. I don't know what that's about because it's a solid album, man.
Yeah, it's a solid album.
Yeah,
they're wrong. They're wrong, AJ.
They are wrong, and that's fine. They can sit there in their wrongness and feel bad about being wrong. But yeah, no, that's number 4 for me. I'll say like
Four,
that's,
something like
that's
oh,
five.
sorry, number
Yeah,
5.
that
So
was
number
5.
5.
Yeah.
Sorry, no, I was getting ready to say like, that could bounce around like up to probably 3 to somewhere in there. 3, 4, and 5. I honestly could tomorrow feel different.
Right.
But yes. So yeah, that's number 5 for me.
All right. What's your number 5, David?
Inland by Jars of Clay.
Nice.
I said we'll get there.
Nice.
This is one though that I think it was a bit of an off the beaten path for them. I mean, stylistically, it's still very folk rock. They worked with Tucker Martine, who had produced stuff for like the Decemberists and stuff. They kind of wanted something more Pacific Northwesty because they think they recorded in Portland, and they got it. But it's definitely one of those that I'm glad that they had distanced themselves from their old label before they made it. There's nothing controversial about it, but the gatekeepers wouldn't have liked it. And like, you need more God songs on this. A lot of it's more cryptic, more relational. And just again, song for song, I just think there's some really strong songwriting there. Interesting musicianship. It's not as woodsy as something like We Are Instead, but it's got its own kind of unique vibe that's kind of unlike anything else in their discography. And that to date is the last original album that they have put out, sadly. But it was a good high note to go out on.
Yeah.
So that's my pick for them. I mean, definitely back in their Christian radio days, you would not have heard of anything like Loneliness and Alcohol, which is probably like one of their hardest rockers in their entire canon. But such a good song, unusual dark song for them. That album's just kind of all over the place emotionally, and I love it for that.
I think Pennsylvania is probably a top 10 Jars of Clay song for me.
Yeah,
I know it's kind of a slow jam, but it's
I
beautiful.
love that song, and it makes no sense to me. And I love that it makes no sense to me. It's one of their most cryptic, like, what the heck is this about?
Yeah.
And I think it's like a weird lucid dream.
Yeah.
No idea.
Yeah, it's very cool. So I guess, David, we're hitting on all the like controversial CCM Twitter topics here because Kylan and his other podcast, Church Jams Now, put out an episode about Jars of Clay's self-titled album. And spoiler alert, I think they all 3 flopped it, right? They
Yes.
do a bopper flop at the end of the episode.
Oh.
And they all flopped it. And Josh Baylog got took offense to it, and they had a nice fun back and forth on Twitter for a while, and it still comes up pretty often. We had Josh on the show last time. I think it came up then too. It's one of those things that sneaks its head in every once in a while because
and like I love that first album. I have a love-hate relationship with it because there's so many of their fans that cannot move past it and accept how much they evolved beyond that. Jars of Clay is, to me, what were you saying earlier about like a band kind of evolving along with it was falling up, except you didn't know it because you had a gap where you hadn't listened to it.
Yeah.
Jars of Clay for me is the band that kind of evolved along with, I think, like both my tastes and just like my worldview. You know, just in terms of like who they appeal to, they're kind of gradually like we still write about things that are relevant to us as Christians, but we're not cheerleading for the CCM crowd. Well, you know, that kind of thing. And I really have just related to them every step.
Yeah.
I mean, they're humans that grew and evolved and changed and got information, experienced new things, and I don't know, reacted to all that. That's super weird. How dare they?
Yeah. You froze up there for a second, David. What was that last thing you said?
I was just saying people don't like that in CCM land sometimes.
No.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Jars of Clay should be considered like one of the great bands of our lifetime, I think. And maybe CCM, maybe that label kind of ruined that for them. I don't know. I think.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's why they'll.
To the mainstream, they're still a one-hit wonder.
Yeah.
Like there's a YouTube show I watch about one-hit wonders, and they did a really interesting episode on Jars of Clay. But yeah, it was like,
oh really?
You know, and they delved into like what did they do after the hit, and I was like, well, they actually gave them a fair shake. But you know, for somebody who wasn't into Christian music, knew nothing about them but fled, and that's kind of where most people are. Is that one band that had that one song in the '90s, and back when it felt like we could kind of get away with all the Christian rock crossovers,
Right. Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on that album, AJ? Do you know? Are you familiar with it?
Yeah, no,
Inland?
it's a good album. I mean, as we talked about, I think during the '90s stuff, of like, I don't know if Jars of Clay necessarily have a bad album. They have albums that are my favorite, but if again it's on, day ever comes, I'm right in the car with David, and he puts it on, and I'm like, all right, Jars of Clay, all right, this is fine by me.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I'm not gonna like, you're like, oh gosh, no, right? And so yeah, this album's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
But they need to come back.
Yeah, they need to come back. I wonder if they're just. I wonder if they were trying to escape totally from the CCM crowd with Inland, and it's just impossible to do at this point.
I think it's not viable for them to still like make a living as a recording and touring artists. They play shows at their studio from time to time. They do little Christmas things. They recorded a Christmas EP a few years ago, but they pretty much done making music for the most part. I think at this point they're more of a legacy band.
Yeah, it's sad.
Maybe we can get a couple of other '90s CCM bands that kind of also went the same direction as they did. Let's get a tour going. Let's go.
Yeah,
that'd be rad. I'd be all for it if they could get enough people to buy tickets. I'd be there. Yeah, I missed my last couple chances to see them. But both times they were in LA for Inland, I was out of town, and I was like, "What are the odds?"
They were avoiding.
That'd be like my last chance to see them.
That sucks.
Yeah.
All right. My number 4 is Riviera by Shadow Shadow. Synth pop, dream pop / album, as a lot of mine from this era are. I think at the time I was once said it was like pop hits from a colder, darker planet or something. It's just kind of, I guess a little bit of Depeche Mode vibe to them too, but they have a lot of guest vocals from females in, I think, 7 of the 9 songs. I think the guy who actually makes the Shadow music sings on a couple of them, and he is also from the band Log that I've talked about a few times on here. Just some atmospheric synth jams. You guys familiar with that one?
Yeah, I've heard of it.
All right.
Sounds up my alley, man.
Yeah, you have to check it out. Let me know what you think. Kylan had his number 4 was Paradise Valley by John Mayer. I don't know that one personally. I know John Mayer, of course, but not that album.
I have a love-hate relationship with John Mayer.
I think I'm supposed to recreate that album cover, right? I'm supposed to go to like find a wheat field.
Oh yeah, that was that
Lost Lands. Yeah, and get like a blanket. And then
that's when he moved off to Montana.
Yeah.
I like the idea of that album more than the actual album. I think it was okay. I was not that he returned to acoustic, but it didn't really do a whole lot for me. But I'm glad to see someone sticking up for it. Where he I think he has this reputation as this amazing guitarist, and he doesn't really use it as much on his albums as he should. That's kind of my critique of John Mayer.
I've listened to like his first couple albums. I think that's about all. It's just not really totally my thing, I guess, but he's fine.
His first one I love, one of my favorites of the 2000s. After that, it's really hit or miss.
Yeah. AJ, what is your number 4?
My number 4 was mentioned earlier as well, and that is the Civil Wars.
Yes.
In fact, I love this album so much that I talked about some of the tracks last time when we talked about the Civil War.
I did a double take. I was like, wait, which album were those tracks on?
Yeah, so I mean, one of the things I'll say about the Civil Wars is it sounds like a double album, right? Like there's not a ton of difference sound-wise between the 2 albums to where it's not. I don't necessarily feel bad about mixing them up, but it's great. Like they're fantastic. That's not meant to be a criticism at all. But yeah, Tell Mama, the One That Got Away, I Had Me a Girl, the cover of Disarm. They do some good covers. They have a cover of Between the Bars by Elliott Smith that's really great as well. But I just love the folksy old country harmonies that they do at times. They get some like dirty blues guitar work in there, which I dig. Right, like they were a cool band that I like together better than anything else I've heard from them separately, which I don't know, is probably some controversial take on somebody. But yeah, I know you mentioned this one, David. What did you want to say anything about it?
Yeah, I really, it hurts to leave that one off the list because that was another one I played to death that year. I was shocked that it came out because I had heard that they had broken her up like the year before. So I was like, what? There's a new album out? That happened.
They had it in the
studio
while
they were. Well, I think they had recorded it, and maybe it just got, just needed to be produced or mixed or whatever. But how they managed to finish that album, I will never know. But yeah, because they just famously did not get along towards the end there. But it also kind of adds to the appeal of some of the songs, like the one that got away. Like that song is such a backhanded compliment, Like I wish you were the one that got away. Like, ouch. So it kind of makes it a little bit more realistic. I hate to say it, but then there's like From This Valley, which is like I played that as a worship song. Because it's just such a beautiful. It's like a little like acoustic gospel kind of track. Harmonies on that are gorgeous. And I remember like hearing Joy Williams CCM stuff back in the day, being startled when the Civil War was kind of like, what, she's doing like indie folk now? Like, how's that going to work? The fact that it works that well, and neither of them, they put out some good stuff since then that I've kind of liked, but yeah, neither of them have been anywhere near as powerful apart as they were together, which is just a sad irony because I'm pretty sure they will probably never record together again.
I don't know. Taylor Swift got them to do a new version of Safe and Sound, right? Like, but they were separately in the studio, I think.
Well,
she brought them each in to do their part. Was that when she was re-recording all of her stuff?
When she was doing probably one of the most punk rock things an artist has done in a long time. I will take my music back. Thank you very much.
I respect the heck out of that, even though I'm not in any way, shape, or form a Taylor Swift fan. Like, I respect. I mean, a lot of artists are doing that now, surprisingly, like re-recording their old albums for anniversaries, and some better than others. But I respect the intent behind it.
And I love that allegedly it's a Kelly Clarkson idea, considering some things that happened to her in her career. She was like, you know what, Taylor Swift, got an idea for you.
Yeah, if a label ever screwed you over, just go back and re-record your album.
Yep.
It's definitely become a trend, which I'm not complaining. Rarely have I heard one that I like better than the original, but it makes sense.
We're hitting a saturation point on it, but still, I expect
Yeah. What's your number 4, David?
My number 4, this is going to seem like deja vu for my number 5. It's not the same artist, but it's the same singer. The Hawk in Paris, that's the band name. The album is Freaks. This is their one and only album. It is a side project of Jars of Clay lead singer Dan Hasseltine and Matt Ronlew, who was an original Jars of Clay member, left before the first album was recorded, and Jeremy Bowes. And both of those other two guys have done a lot of production on the more like kind of pop, synth pop side of things, and that's basically what kind of music this is. If you can imagine like the guy from Jars of Clay singing very 80s inspired synth pop, dance pop with like the more melancholy lyrics than I think anything Jars of Clay ever did. It's close. It's around that same era.
I've not heard this. I don't know how I've not heard this. I desperately now want to hear this.
I can't imagine that it got a ton of exposure because it was just such a side project. And the fact that it came out so close to Inland too, I think didn't really do it any favors, to be honest. But they were working on those songs for several years. My description of this album is music for the kids sitting outside the high school dance in the rain because their date dumped them.
Yeah.
Like it's that kind of like, imagine like a John Hughes 80s movie where it's like this teenager's just completely unlucky in love and moping around. It's that kind of music, but it's also very danceable and on several tracks. So I love it. I wish more people had heard of it. I heard a rumor they might be making new music, which excites me because, again, probably not going to get any new Jars of Clay music anytime soon. So I'll take anything adjacent to that I can get.
I really liked the sound of that album. just that whole kind of a little bit of a synth pop kind of vibe that I'm always up for.
It's on my
Yeah.
phone, man. I'm
Yeah.
excited now.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
I know what I'm doing when we're done here.
I think that was one of the first albums I listened to on Spotify when I signed up in 2013.
Oh wow, very cool. All right, my number 3 is "Behold" by My Epic.
That's a good one. Another one you got me into.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I just took that out for you. Yeah.
Yeah, their most worship kind of driven album as well, but it's like very much also a post-hardcore album, similar to like some of Thrice's stuff. Just really cool vibes, cool songs.
There's a
Yeah,
track I
I don't.
really loved on there, and I'm looking at it, and I can't figure out what track it was from when I listened to it whenever you suggested it to me.
Yeah,
But there was one
Hate
I
it when that
really-
happens. I can't remember the name of the song.
I'll have to go back and re-listen to it.
yeah.
Figure it out.
Yeah, I don't really know what to say to it. It just sounds really good. The production is crazy good. Matt Goldman produced it. Everything he touches is gold.
I see what you did there.
Yeah.
They're playing Furnace Fest, right? Like you're gonna get to see them.
Yeah, I'll get to see them. That'll be my second or third time seeing them.
Nice.
Yeah, my favorite, My Epic album, although all of their stuff is actually really good. Definitely check out anything that you've not heard by them. Yeah. Kylan's number 3 is Heartthrob by Tegan and Sara, which is my favorite.
Hold off on
Tegan
it.
and Sara.
If you guys want to
Okay.
talk about this, this will be higher up for me.
Okay. All right. We can hold off on that then. What's your number 3, AJ?
Number 3, you've heard me mention this person before, Frank Turner, Tape Deck Heart. Have either of you heard it before?
I've not.
Not.
All right. So like every Frank Turner album is different. This one is like very shouty post breakup. The songs I really like on there are Recovery, Plain Sailing Weather, Four Simple Words. Four Simple Words starts out with like this piano ballad, and then it cuts into just like a complete like dancey rock song about he just wants to hear Four Simple Words, which is I want to dance. And so he's a former frontman for the hardcore punk band Million Dead. And so it's really funny that he's making like dancey music about how like deep down all punk rockers really just want to dance. But yeah, Recovery is again 2013 release that like biographically for me was summer of 2012. And then Plain Sailing Weather is just such a good song. Like anything by Frank Turner I'm gonna love. But this is well produced, shouty, sing along, rock and roll with some folk elements. Kind of started off being a folk artist and now is more like somewhere like the again sing along Americana but British realm. But like every album is slightly different. This one, it's a fun one to go to live because you're just singing around and everybody's in a good mood and you're kind of just jamming out. But yes, Tape Deck Heart, Frank Turner.
Very nice. He's one that I've been familiar with for a long time, but never really, listened to that much. But
I got introduced to him in 2012 on the beach in Croatia.
Very cool.
A buddy of mine that was British was like listening to me talk, and he's like, "I have music for you," and he was correct. Loved him ever since. Both the friend and Frank Turner. So
very cool. David, what is your number 3?
My number 3 is Ames by Vienna Ting. And she is one of those artists that I just don't ever stop gushing about. She's my favorite singer-songwriter of all time. And I don't run into a lot of people that have heard of her. I probably got into her early on just because she's a California artist. I saw her play a lot of small shows at clubs around here when she was getting started. But her style is kind of like a piano rock. Very like she has a tendency of writing from like the third person, from like fictional character perspectives. There's a lot of like a Tori Amos vibe to her stuff. It's very haunting, but it can also be very innocent and beautiful. It just depends on the song. And Ames is her 5th and most recent album as of right now. And that one she went more electronic, and it's more concerned with like the earth and the environment and what people can do to kind of pull it together and undo some of the damage that we've done. Because part of the reason why she quit music for a while was to go into to go back to school and study environmental sustainability. So that's a big topic for her, but there's some beautiful songs on there. Like Level Up is one of the best, like kind of synth poppy songs I've heard, but it's in 7/8 time. So it's just like an oddball song. That's like, how is it so catchy when it's in a weird trance signature? The Hymn of Axiom. She has like one song on her album that's just like creepy. And that's the creepy song on this one. It's like she does the Image and Keep thing where she splits her voice into like a multi-part harmony. But as the song goes on, it sounds more and more computerized because it's sung from the point of view of a database that's trying to amass as much of your personal information as it can. And it's trying to convince you that it's doing this for a good reason.
Oh my God, that sounds
fantastic. A lot of just really lyrically fascinating songs. I like to say that single lines from her songs could like inspire entire novels sometimes. Like she just creates these really fascinating worlds within each song. So she's one of those rare artists that every album she's put out, I've graded, A, 5 stars. She's not one of those that like has the just okay album.
Every time I've come across one of her albums in my discount bins, I buy them just because I know how much you love her stuff. That so at some point I'm gonna it's gonna grab me in that same way, I think. But I can't remember which ones I've heard. I've heard 2 or 3 of them, but yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, most of her early stuff's more mellow. It's like more down tempo. This one's more pop.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I've heard this one. I think the ones I've heard were earlier albums. All right. My number 2 is Skyer by Postoyonen, which is
a good one.
Yeah. Synth pop from Sweden, dream pop, total driving on the beach at sundown vibes. Just feels good to listen to. My daughter is named Mia because their singer's name is Mia. That's where I came up with that idea from.
Wow,
yep.
How'd you talk your wife into that one?
Well, we were just coming up with names, just any names we could think of, and that was just why I thought of her name. It wasn't necessarily naming her after her. That was just where the name came from. But yeah, just probably I wish they'd put out more music. Probably my favorite really female fronted band at this point, even though they've only got like 2 albums. But yeah, that's one of my favorite synth pop albums ever. Probably a top 10 all-time album for me, I'd say. At least top 20 for sure. Did you say you've heard this one, David?
Yeah, again, because of you. That was another one from your top albums of the 2010s list that I checked out right at the beginning of 2020. So I've only known it for a little while, but I nice. Get that same feeling when I put it on for sure.
Nice. All right. Kylan's number 2 is Pedestrian Verse by Frightened Rabbit.
That was on I think that ended up like number 12, if I remember right for me. Okay. Just missed the list. I enjoy a good Frightened Rabbit album. Yeah, so awesome tunes, lots of great tracks. It's a good one to like, if you're ever in a mood to like have the lights down low or whatever and then sip some whiskey. That's your album.
Very nice. It's another band that I've like known kind of for a long time, but haven't really given the time that I should. What's your number 2?
They're great.
Oh, sorry.
No, that was saying they're great. My number 2 is, and I don't know if you guys will know this one, but you should, both of you, based off of what you said, Daughter, If You Leave. So they're a band out of the UK called Daughter, and the album is If You Leave. Either of you heard of it or heard of that?
Oh, surprisingly, I have not.
So, Eric?
Yes, I have. I can't remember if I've listened to the album or not. I'm looking
Okay.
it up to let you
Yeah,
know.
so very electronic, but like chill electronic. Good background music, but like really introspective and like gut-wrenchingly beautiful lyrics as well. So this is something I can listen to while I'm working, or if I'm having trouble sleeping, or I just want to feel feelings or whatever, right? I can put this album on, fronted by a woman's got a really beautiful voice. But all of their stuff is very poetic and very pretty, and so good. This actually, I had to go to tiebreakers for this of my number one. Spoiler, you can tell what my number one is, and based off my comment earlier. No, this is such a cool, relaxing album. But again, like, it's thoughtful when you listen to the words, and it's just pretty. They do good tunes.
I apparently haven't listened to the whole thing, but I'm going to need to do that because I do know of it, but according to Rate Your Music, I haven't rated it, so I probably haven't heard it in full.
Winter, Smother, and Youth would probably be the three that I would start with. Winter's, I think, the opening track, if I'm remembering right now. But yeah, such good music.
Very cool. David, what is your number two?
I might be scooping you on this one because it's Hours by Falling Up. Is that on your list? Of course it's on your list.
Duh. Yes.
So we'll get to that when you talk about it.
Well, I'll be talking about it very soon because it is my number one album of 2013.
Gee,
Hours by
Eric,
Falling Up.
can I guess your number one?
Yeah, go ahead.
Is it Hours by Falling Up?
That's the one.
Wow.
Good job, AJ. But did you know it would
still
be
like
David's number two?
I would have guessed that a Falling Up album would have been number one. Yeah. I don't know if I would have guessed that specific one because I'm not familiar enough, but yeah, I would have guessed one of them.
Yeah, I mean, I did. You probably didn't know that David is also a fan, though, did you?
I did not.
Well, except for I mentioned it earlier. Duh.
Well, yeah, I didn't have to.
Yeah, you mentioned it
as of tonight. I did not know this.
Yeah,
you know,
I would have been shocked.
2 hours ago.
Yeah,
as of 2 hours ago, I was unfortunately unaware of this.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me that I got to it first. That's the thing that blows my mind.
Yep, you beat me to it.
You got to it because of me, and I still can't wrap my head around that. Like, you ranked it even higher than I did.
Yeah. Yep, it's all your fault. Yeah, I mean, I've gushed plenty about Falling Up. People probably don't want to hear me talk about them anymore. So you go ahead and tell people why you enjoy this album.
I love the whole concept of it. It is definitely their densest album. Like, it's the polar opposite of Midnight on Earthship. Midnight on Earthship has a lot of space. It's a very gentle album. This one, it's like there's almost like no space left unfilled. Every track's up tempo, and there's a story behind it that's like the Jesse Rivordi actually made an audiobook out of, because he's just one of those relentlessly creative people. I just watched your interview with him the other day, by the way.
Ooh.
It's like, dude, this guy constantly has like tons of irons in the fire. But yeah, I recorded an entire audiobook where every song is a chapter. And it's basically this story about these high school kids that are given access to this gym that has mysterious scientific properties or something. It's been a while since I listened to it. For 1 hour a day. And they come up, because they're all geniuses, they come up with some pretty strange things to do with that space during that time. That's all that I will give away about it. It's very kind of like spacey rock. Like, there's a lot of keyboard synthesizer, but it's still also very guitar heavy. A lot of live drums. I love the drumming on that record. Some of it's very unorthodox. Like, my favorite song on that record is The Rest Will Soon Follow. And the first time you listen to that, you will think that like you're listening to a skipping CD, because the drum beats just sound off, but that's how they're supposed to sound. And like, then when it all comes together, it's like, boom. I think that's my favorite song. It has my ringtone for a while, I think. It's just remember when we did that?
Yeah.
I do, yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, just top to bottom, that's one of those songs that just transports me to this completely other science fiction world, which really most of Falling Up's albums do that in one way or another. But this is the one where I actually know what the heck the story behind it is. The rest of them I just have to imagine.
Yes. I think Finn Hatches a Plan might be my favorite Falling Up song. I think when I did my Falling Up list a couple years ago, I had it as my number one Falling Up song, and we just got a new kitten that I named Finn because of that song.
Nice.
Yeah. But yeah, it's nice.
My top two are The Rest Will Soon Follow and Intro to the Radio Room.
Oh,
that song makes me cry. Oh my God, this is such a beautiful song.
Yeah, so good. So good. Well, I'm glad that somebody can gush about Falling Up on here other than myself. So
other than you.
That's nice. Yeah. Although Josh did have some kind words to say on our 2011 episode. So Kylan's number one is Trouble Will Find Me by The National, which I know that's his favorite album of all time, so I'm not surprised. AJ, what is your number one? I think we already know
number
that.
one? Tegan and Sara, Heartthrob. I have prior to this album coming out, I have long loved Tegan and Sara, and then this album takes Tegan and Sara and takes my love of 80s music and puts that together, and no kidding that I love this album. Because like two of my favorite things got put together there, right? It's full of catchy songs, but also it's Tegan and Sara, right? So it's introspective, it's angsty, it's thoughtful, and this actually we talked on the last one, like this as my favorite Tegan and Sara song ever, which is I'm Not Your Hero. And again, it's like very defiant song that I quite enjoy, because they are front and center for that community often enough. And so it was interesting to see them kind of interacting with that of like, hey, you want us to be the poster for children. I don't know about that. So I appreciated that. And then How Come You Don't Want Me is just such a great, beautiful, frustrated love song of like you love somebody and they just don't want you, right? And then of course Closer is I think an important song for my wife and I, right? About this relationship just getting started and you just want to be closer to that person. It's so good. It's funny, when this album originally came out, the very last track is Shock to Your System, and I did not like it at all.
Really?
For whatever reason, I was like, oh man, this album's really great until that song. And then they performed it live. I saw them live, and then ever since then, I loved it. It's so good live. It's one of those ones that, like, the way that they're hitting the drums and stuff like that in there, I don't think it's fully captured right. And it comes across much more like paper route live. And so ever since I saw it live, it changed entirely for me. And that would be another favorite of mine from them. And so good. But yes, Tegan and Sara, Heartthrob. If you haven't listened to it, which I'm sure you have, I would love to get your thoughts on it. Check it out. It is 80s inspired angsty pop. What do you two think?
I think it's definitely my favorite Tegan and Sara album. I like the synth vibes. I really like that they did that. Had some really good hooks and melodies, and when I'm in the mood for Tegan and Sara, that's the one that I put on. Do you know this one, David?
Shockingly, I don't. This sounds like something that slipped by me that really shouldn't have. I mean, I'm aware of the name. It was another one of those bands where like nobody's ever showed me a song that's really made me go, oh, I gotta go listen to more of these guys. And I bet you, if I were to listen to this or any Tegan and Sara album, like chances are there's probably a song that I've heard and I just didn't know it was them. So
yeah, Closer, that's another probably one. Yeah, Closer's been everywhere. I think in lots of places. I think that's probably their most popular song. So it wouldn't shock me if you listen to Closer, you're like, oh, I've heard this. Okay.
Yeah, gotcha. I have that experience a lot when listening to like groups that I missed out, and I'm like, oh, they did this song? I've been wondering who did this song for ages, So I'm sure I'll probably have that experience.
The
Yeah.
Con is their kind of most beloved album, but I don't enjoy it as much as Heartthrob or as much. Colin and AJ both had it on their 2000s decade list, but
Yeah, the Con is
I
my
enjoy
number
it,
one
but
album from
not
them.
like that.
Yeah. The Con, it goes the Con, Sainthood, and then Heartthrob. For me, for their albums. But it's one. I was talking about this with my wife that like they released I think 9 albums now. I mean, I have number 9. Hey, I'm just like you. It's my least favorite album from them, but it's still a really great album, and I still really love it. But yeah. So, David, what's yours?
Oh, that's right. We already talked about lyrics. Well, mine also got spoiled earlier in the list, so I'm glad we get to talk about it now. It is Churches, The Bones of What You Believe. And this is my favorite album of the 2010s, period. This, to me, is the perfect pop album. Like, I love it that much. I was late to Churches. I mean, not super late, but I didn't get into this one until the following year. And I was just immediately like, how did I miss this? Like, it's just got that, like, it's a very, like, chirpy female vocals, but at the same time, it's about something of substance. It's like you learn really quickly, like, Lauren Mayberry seems like this very, like, tiny person with this cutesy voice, but you do not want to mess with her. Like, a lot of these songs are just, like, they just go hard. And I love how the male backing vocals, how they'll occasionally switch one of the guys into the lead position. And, like, they really function extremely well as a unit. Most synth pop bands, there's like a person in the front singing and you don't necessarily know who else is doing what. But I feel like they've been really good about saying, we, the three of us, are a collective and we don't elevate any one person above the others. We all have important roles to play. So they've been, I love all 4 of their albums so far, but this is definitely still my favorite. I think the way that, like, their songs aren't just catchy. What happens to me when I listen to them is I'll get pumped during, like, the pre-chorus of a song. And I'm like, this is as good as, like, most people's choruses. And then, like, the actual chorus will hit. I'm like, I'm getting, like, 2 amazing choruses for the price of 1 in some of these songs. And then some of the slower stuff, I feel like, has kind of been like a gateway drug into, like, shoegaze for me. It sounds like Tether.
Yes.
You Caught the Light. Like, when I went back and finally listened to some bands that I missed out on from the 90s, like Cocteau Twins, Slow Dive, I was like, oh, that's why I like this. Because, like, Churches kind of played with that a little bit. They didn't really do that on their subsequent albums. But I was like, why does this sound kind of the 90s, except in a way that, like, doesn't sound like the music I was listening to in the 90s? And that's why. So it's got, like, everything going on.
Tether's in my top 100 favorite songs of all time. I love how it's just like it's like a slow, like, almost shoegazy thing, and then it turns into this huge synth pop song.
It turns into a rave. Good. I love it. I wish they would have played that. I don't think it's one of the more popular songs. I wish they would have played that live. When I saw them a few years ago at the Greek Theater for the Love Is Dead tour, and they played quite a bit from that album, but unfortunately not that song. Just, like, I used to imagine the whole venue lighting up when they get to that finale. Oh, that would have been amazing.
Oh yeah. AJ, give us your thoughts.
No, it's a great pop album. Like, he said, it sounds like 80s inspired, like, alternative stuff. Maybe a little bit happier, I guess. Almost more like a 90s New Order album.
Mm-hmm.
I see that now.
Right. Fronted by, like you said, I think a really talented vocalist. But no, I mean, if this is one of your favorites, you'll like Heartthrob by Tegan and Sara. Like, I think a tour of those two bands playing these albums entirely, I think, would be a lot of fun.
Oh yeah.
But no, I mean, there's so many good songs on here, right? Mother Share, Recover, Night Sky, all great tracks for me.
So much.
Right. I know as a Mother Share and Recover were the singles on this. Was it Lies or something like that as well?
Lies is my favorite.
Yeah, so that was another one that I listened to this at the gym earlier today, and, like, I've heard this album, a lot. And Lies came through, and I was like, oh, this is hitting me differently today than it has, and it's a really good track. Yeah. So
I love
but
when
yeah,
that happens.
yeah,
An album
yeah,
that
like
you've known
Yeah.
for 10 years and then
yeah,
all of a sudden
exactly.
something hits you different.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty
So
cool.
yeah, but yeah, good tunes.
Yeah. It's
Awesome.
one of those I can put on during a road trip and it keeps the energy up when I need it.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe on one of your previous shows you'd mentioned like albums that are tied to your memories of like certain trips that you took. But like this one to me, summer of 2014, my wife and I went to Wyoming, and we were driving out towards Yellowstone, and like this huge thunderstorm was looming. So like from night sky, it was sunny, and then we got into like science vision, and the thunderstorm just started coming down, and it's like,
Oh, wow.
this is creeping me out right now. Like that's the memory I have whenever that song comes on, of going from like this really happy to like, maybe we should like pull over for a while. You know, like that album always brings back to my mind like the vivid scenery of just like driving through that part of the country, even though obviously this Scottish pop band recording it was not thinking of anything of the sort when they made it. But that's
I know
just
it's
kind of how
Scotland.
albums are.
Rainy clouds and mountains and stuff. That's Scotland, man.
I got to go to Scotland one of these days. I've missed out. But
Yeah, her voice is one that I just I crave to hear her voice sometimes just because it's so unique and
yeah,
it's just pleasant. Yeah, probably one of my top 5 or 10 favorite female vocalists, I'd say. All right, I guess that about covers that. Y'all got anything else you want to mention before we bring it to an end?
I'm just so stoked that you guys brought me on to talk about one of my favorite years. This was a lot of fun.
Awesome. I'm so glad you came on. We'll
Yeah,
definitely.
I was nervous for like 2 minutes, then I was like, okay, I'm just talking to friends, no big deal. So
Yeah,
I made it through without freaking myself out.
that's how I feel when I talk to AJ and Kylan too. So that's kind of why they're pretty much my permanent co-host guests, whatever you want to call them on here now, because yeah, they're super fun to talk to. Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll
you
have
guys
you.
have got a good thing going.
Oh, thanks. We'll have you back on with Kylan at some point soon.
Look forward to it.
Yeah, David. I guess, is there anything you want to plug? Just want to tell people to follow you on your blog site.
Yeah, that's pretty much all I got. I plugged it already, but again, it's Murlough 23, MURLOUGH 23 at WordPress.com. I don't really do a whole lot of the social medias or whatever, so that's pretty much my main output for all my thoughts about music.
Awesome. And if you never read one of David's reviews, you should do it. I don't care if it's your favorite album or whatever, you will learn something that you did not know or didn't notice before, because he's a great writer.
You're also long, just to warn you.
I don't know. We just recorded a 2-hour podcast. I don't know if we're
yeah.
Fair point. Well, I one of those guys who likes to write about every song, because I feel like I got frustrated with reviews that would say an album was good, but kind of skip over the fluff. And I was like, no, if there's filler, I want to talk about it. If there's bad songs, I want to talk about them. You know, like for better or worse, the album has to stand up for itself on the strength of all of its songs, not just the hits. So that's kind of why I do that, but it takes forever.
For people like me, though, I love it. I appreciate that you put all that time into it.
Wow. Thanks. I'm glad that somebody gets something out of
that. AJ, tell people where they can find your book.
I mean, they can get it through Amazon and apparently other places now too, so that's pretty cool. But you can find me at AJS is Writing on Twitter or Instagram, and that's my website. When this gets posted, there also should be I'm going to start putting like short stories on my website too, to kind of build off of the book a bit, and so there should be the first one of those up by time we have this up too, and that's at AJSisWriting.com. I had to think about that one there. But yeah, Jesus and Joe Strummer, if you like music, punk rock stuff in the Christian sphere, maybe you won't hate it. How about that? That's a pretty hard sell for my book. If you got Kindle Unlimited, man, it's free to read to you. So like, I don't know, if you got like 3 hours It's probably worse than like an appendectomy.
That should be the pull quote in the jacket of your book.
There we go.
And you can find Kylan at Church Jams now. All their socials and their podcast. Check them out. You can find me at Ineverglow on Twitter, at Ineverglow.eric on Instagram. Please follow us on YouTube and let us know what your favorite albums of 2013 are. Have a good evening. Bye.
Bye.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. Really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.